Hello friends, time to take a look at these crypto markets. Looking at Bitcoin here shortly, we'll be looking at a few alts that I'm watching here. And for the most part, it's just been a couple of days of rest as expected after that very strong move we saw a few days back. But now that we've seen a little bit of consolidation, the next question is, where do things go from here? We'll look at the big picture chart as well as some near-term action. Taking a look at the Node Insider site first. The trading bot status remains long for both the 4-hour strategy and the daily strategy, so that continues to show bullish indication here. The daily chart's still very strong. Short-term action dipping a little bit here into the yellow as things just kind of go sideways, sit tight. Slightly looking for a little bit more pullback, and we'll look at the charts here shortly. So longer term, still very much in the bull camp. Near term, I'm a little bit more neutral, maybe even slightly in the bearish side, but the alts continue to look better than Bitcoin here in terms of some outperformance, which is great. We love to see the price of Bitcoin going up while the Bitcoin dominance drops, because that means the alts are doing very well. Looking at the trending list here today, Augur showing a big spike, pulling back here a little bit from the highs, but still up well into the double digits here. Was up about 70% at one point earlier over the last 24 hours, still up about 47% over the last 24 hours here. A few others that have been on the list already. Monocoin, we saw RLC a few days ago. Ethereum Classic continues to rock. 0x showing up here with some good relative strength. Dash still holding up there. All the Bitcoin forks, as well as a few others here. EOS looking good today. Monero, Binance popping on the list here a little bit, but let's take a look at the chart here, starting with the price of Bitcoin. What I have here is the daily chart of Bitcoin going back to about mid-October. And there's a couple of things that I want to note on here. First, as I've talked about here over my last several videos during the last few live streams, this $9K to $9,100 level is going to be an important level for the bulls to start closing above on a daily basis. If the big macro picture trend is beginning to turn, that will really go to build a case in terms of confirmation of the broader trend turning, the low being placed. As we saw here over the last 2 months, there was this big reversal pattern forming that culminated into a very strong breakout here, which led to another move right back up. But that rally paused right below that resistance level that I was looking at here. And this is the confluence of several items to make note of. First is this 200-day moving average, this white line going across here. You can see it's starting to curl down here over the last couple of days, and price is now bouncing right into that. As I record this, the 200-day moving average sits right around $9,070 here on this BTC USD Coinbase price. This is also a key horizontal price resistance here. This $9,100 level goes back several months as a little bit of an inflection point here. Was that big descending triangle base that we saw over the summer of 2019, and it has been some resistance here as of late. That's that yellow line going across. Then there's the declining trend line from the June peak, and this is now starting to cross right around these levels, that 9,000. This is also a Fibonacci retracement zone. If we look at the peak that we saw here in October to the most recent low around 6,400, and then the bounce that we've seen here, the 618 retracement puts you right around 89.72 here. And so looking at it from different angles, clearly this is an important level to be watching. Could be an inflection point if price starts to close above it. As I said on the live stream, was it 2 days ago, ideally it'd be great if price could start to consolidate here at these levels, put a little bit of a base in. This would allow things to really cool off on the shorter term time frames. Maybe let this move digest here a little bit. You can see the moving averages are still catching up. The 10 EMA on the daily is just now barely approaching 8,300. The 22 EMA is still way down here at 7,900. So if it could sit tight for a couple of days, that would be ideal. That would really set the tone for a potential breakout over that 9,100 level and get things going, set up for another leg higher. And so that would be the best case. Alternatively, could that be the end of the move? Could that be just the bounce? Sets up for another lower high in the big macro picture trend, And if that's the case, then we got to be keeping an eye on some levels to the downside as potential support zones that you would want to see hold. Otherwise, then yes, you could be talking about price rolling over from here over the next several weeks, and then maybe even possibly retesting these lows or making a new relative low. But that's, one step at a time. For now, the trend is still very much in favor of the bulls here in the short term. Looking at the price action over the last couple of weeks, basically since the start of 2020, it's been very positive for Bitcoin and even many of the alts here. So let's dial it in here, look at a little bit shorter time frame. So taking a look at the 4-hour view from basically the start of January up until this most recent move here, you can see the broader uptrend. It's still very much in place. You've got this higher high, higher low pattern being formed. As long as this trend continues to hold, these little bases are nice secondary entries, sets up for another pullback, another setup. And this is where we're going to keep an eye on this macro trend, this broader trend. If it just continues to go sideways, then look for that lower trend line to hold. This white line here on the chart, that's around the daily 10 EMA, just shy of 8,300. So even a pullback down into that level would not be a big deal, because that'd just be pulling right back to the shorter term time frame on that 4-hour view or on the daily view. The key level to be watching here in the very short term, the near term, you can see there's a little bit of support starting to form here around that 80, just shy of 8,600, about 8,590 or so. But this is just kind of neutral at this point, starting to go symmetrical. You see these price really starting to coil up here. But what I'm going to be watching is if it breaks to the downside, the next levels to be watching are around 8,400 to around 8,200. And this lines up with this prior breakout points. You can see that's 8,200 right there. 8,400 was this most recent swing high. And so this little zone here would be an ideal place to start looking for potential pullback entries and a support level to be formed if price starts to pull back. This is also the daily 10 EMA. The 22 EMA is still down here near 7,900, but we expect that to start catching up here quickly. But that would be my first major support zone to be watching in the event of more downside price action. Until it breaks that level, there's really nothing to be worried about in terms of the big picture uptrend, because the big picture uptrend is still in place, making higher highs, higher lows, still holding the daily moving averages. And so even a pullback down to this level would be a normal pullback on the daily chart. So not that big of a deal. And in fact, that'd probably be healthy, lets this digest the move a little bit, and as I said previously, potentially sets up for that big breakout on the higher time frames. On the upside, however, we're looking at this very tight range, and let me look at the 1-hour chart just to narrow that down. Price is starting to consolidate here, really coil up. We had that most recent swing high, then the pullback, then a retest, wasn't able to take out that high, pulling back here, made it a lower high, but still making higher lows. And so right now, price is at a little bit of a decision point here. Over the next day or so, I'm going to see if we can break out of this range. On the downside, 8,600 would be that level to watch. On the upside, if it starts to take out to this 8,800 level and start to hold above that, then things are going to look positive and potential second leg up on that 4-hour chart had begun. So that's what I'm going to be watching here in the very short term. But we can see this is just really starting to coil up and consolidate and form a little bit of a tight range here. So I expect this decision will be made here over the next 24 hours, one way or the other. And to be fair, I do have a slight, not a huge, but I have a slight bearish bias on this here right now. I'm expecting a little bit more consolidation, a little bit more pullback, and into that lower level that I pointed out earlier. Not a huge drop, but ideally, if we see 8,400, maybe even 8,300, I think that'd be healthier all around. But certainly the momentum favors the bulls on the bigger time frames. And so for now, I have a more of a neutral stance with a slight bearish bias, but I'm not overly aggressive bearish here in terms of just going all in short or anything. It's a little bit more of a wait and see scenario, but I think the alts, especially the alt BTC pairs, are where some of the better opportunities lie right now. So let's go look at some of those here. So starting with some of the recent big movers, Bitcoin Cash versus BTC here has been consolidating above these moving average pairs, forming a little bit of a bull flag here on this 4-hour time frame, letting the moving average catch up. We can also see that the RSI and the MACD have now had plenty of time to cool off here following that consolidation. And so now it's a matter of which way does this begin to move out of range Is it going to set up for another leg higher? It's already had quite the run, was certainly extended on the daily time frames, and so the fact that we've cooled off makes sense. I was expecting this pullback from this big climactic bar that we saw here, that big wick. Since then it certainly has pulled back, but now it's starting to find a little bit of a low here above that 3600 sat level, and so that's going to be your first near-term target to be watching. If it does decide to break lower, then the last breakout point is really the key level that we want to see held if this is going to continue higher on the daily time frames. But all in all, this is a potentially bullish consolidation here forming on this chart, so it's something I'd be watching. If it starts to get above 38.7, then that looks like another leg is beginning, and I'd be watching for another breakout on the way up. ETH BTC is another one to be watching here. Very strong move to the upside from that double bottom reversal that we saw in that daily chart. This was the breakout point here and had a quick spike higher. First target was at neckline, which is right around that 187 level. It's been consolidating right at that point, interestingly enough. Next target up is around 196. That'd be the double bottom measured move up also to some next resistance level. And then over that, we'd have to look at some more upside targets. Litecoin has already begun to move. We saw this pullback right to the breakout point previously, had another leg up, pulling right back to the moving averages. And notice how often this is just following those moving averages. Since they crossed over bullish, you got a touch here, another touch here, starting to push higher as volume is starting to come back in here. This 4-hour candle still has about an hour left to go, but it's looking like it's trying to get going again, and that 7,000 level is the next target that I'm watching on the Litecoin BTC pair. Dash, crazy extended after this monster run and then had this little bit of a blow off move, but it didn't really pull back. It had that big spike higher and has so far continued to consolidate here near the highs. Very bullish action here. Look for another leg up potentially, but this one is extended on the higher time frames, but just continues to march higher here. The trend is your friend, still holding even the short-term moving averages. Notice the 10 EMA on the 4-hour has not even closed below that since this initial move here off the lows. So has had a fantastic move, still looking strong, but it's already up 120% in about a week's time. So I would make note of that. It's been a quick and fast move, but as often is the case in this crypto space, strength begets strength, and generally those names that are very strong continue to outperform for some time. So I'd be keeping an eye on those there. EOS BTC also has been one of the stronger ones. Had that big breakout move here a few days ago, pull back right to the moving averages, trying to get going again. At this time, this 4-hour candle is forming a very nice power pivot candle there, so we'll see if that can hold. There is some selling showing up here as it approaches the highs from a couple of days ago, but so far it is looking positive. Another one that's moving relative to Bitcoin, and this is what I'm liking about the market right now, is a lot of these big cap names, some of the big alt versus BTC pairs, which have been in just longer term macro bear trends versus Bitcoin, are finally coming off the lows and showing some life here, showing some good volume coming off the lows. So certainly from a bigger picture perspective, that is positive. Could we have seen the low in the alt market versus Bitcoin? Possibly. Certainly this is, week 1, week 2 of a potential reversal. So there's a long ways to go before it's really in hindsight as the new uptrend has begun. But the near-term action is very positive, and we can see that in the BTC dominance chart. When you look at some of those there, let me pull that up real quick. We can see that here with the total market cap going up while the BTC dominance chart just continues to drop here, makes a little bit of a lower low, a lower high, looking like it's turning down again. All around showing positive action from the big cap names. Looking at some of the smaller names, as I mentioned here on the trending list, Augur has been on a move up very large already here today, going from that swing low to swing high up about 85% as I record this. Very strong name. RLC, also another one that's been trending higher as of late. I was also watching Mana yesterday. It is pulling back today, so I'm going to keep an eye on this pullback, this daily chart, to see if it starts to hold at these moving averages, or on that 4-hour chart, excuse me. It was extended, didn't want to chase it. Now that we're seeing this pullback, certainly one I'm going to keep an eye on there. And it's always interesting to see if the rotation begins. Very often what we see is rotation out of the big cap names after they've had a very strong move. You start to see them pause, take a breather, and then you see the mid-cap names start to run. We're starting to see some of that already. 0x is one on the list Link is another one that I'm keeping an eye on. Potential breakout forming here, a little bit of a zone range being formed, but a lot of those mid-cap tier names and even some of the smaller names are potentially going to see a little catch-up move. And some of the other ones that haven't really caught up yet, Cardano, for example, keep an eye on that one. This one hasn't really participated in this most recent run-up. It's held versus Bitcoin, so if you look at the Cardano USD chart, it certainly looks much stronger, but versus BTC hasn't had that strong outperformance that many of these other alts have. So certainly something to be watching there. Remember that there is a promotion going on. If you're interested in checking out the nodeinsiders.com site, there is a coupon code 2020. I will put that in the video links, as well as some links to the site and some information if you want to learn more about that. You'll also get an invite to our Slack group, so join the conversation there. Go check us out at nodeinsiders.com. As always, my friends, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone.